I love that SWAT team concept, and I'm sure you were all taking notes thinking, we're going to call ourselves a SWAT team. We're going to come up with a cool acronym like that for our team, too. James Breitmeyer's resume is a long one, but I think I can use the word matchmaker about him as well, because with his work as head of Oncternal Therapeutics, it's all about matching up patients with the range of malignancies that are out there, with the therapies that are still in the clinical stages, and focusing on the cancer cells while preserving the healthy ones. And after all, I think Hippocrates would approve of that. So, Dr. James Breitmeyer, take it away.
Well, I'm very pleased to be able to describe a highly successful partnership and collaboration, and to be part of the next phase of getting a CIRM-sponsored program all the way to patients. So I think you've heard Kat describe some of the early parts of this program, where a discovery in Dr. Kipp's laboratory was taken all the way through phase 1 within the university, with critical funding and assistance from the CIRM organization. That's the first part of this. And Michael Choi, who speaks after me, will be describing how this was all taken all the way through phase 1. In that part of the program, critical things were learned about the antibody, the way that the antibody treats the disease, how to study the patients, how to give it, and that paved the way for the next phase of this. We at Oncternal, a small San Diego biotech, heard about this program, heard that the university was interested in finding a partner to then take it into the next phase, which would ultimately result in FDA approval. The university took it farther than most universities take it, very impressively, and the next part is something that really does require a partner with regulatory experience, FDA approval experience, commercial experience. And we were happy to step in and assume that role. The very next phase is, I think, a great example of how the Alpha Clinic part of the CIRM organization accelerates programs like this, because we're ready to then take what was learned in the first phase 1 study. We're launching right now a major phase 1/2 effort that actually has the potential to go all the way to approval. I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's going to start first and fastest within the Alpha Clinic network. And then, we're shortcutting some of the time constraints that companies have when they try to get a study going. And you'll hear lots of patient organizations, a lot of people in the industry complain about how long it takes things to get going. This is getting going much faster than usual, and it's exactly because of the Alpha network that's happening. So our colleagues at UCSD and in the Alpha Clinic network are getting this then key next study going quickly, and then we're going to take it nationwide. We're going to recruit top leukemia and lymphoma centers around the country, and then the next key collaborator then are the investigators, and of course the patients who volunteered themselves and their time to help us show that the drug is safe and effective and that it should be approved. And what we're hoping, as you'll see in a pretty short period of time, is that we can reach FDA approval and get sirtuximab to patients out all through the United States. So we also got we've got a very happy dilemma in this program as well. And so sirtuximab, the antibody that you'll hear more about, is an antibody by itself. It's a straightforward antibody. It happens to work by shutting down the malignant cells. It doesn't use the immune system to clear them out. It shuts them off. And that same antibody, that same special way of finding and binding to the ROR1 stem cell marker, can also be harnessed to produce several other approaches to treating cancer, and we're working on all of them. So for example, in the top left, you can take that antibody, put a toxin molecule on it, it gets into the cell, it kills the cancer stem cell. That's particularly useful because when cemtuzumab binds ROR1, they both get pulled into the cell quickly and deliver themselves exactly in the cell to where you would want to go to kill that cancer stem cell. It can also be used to direct a chimeric antigen receptor T cell, the lower left part here. And you're going to hear much more about CAR Ts later in the seminar today. For us, it's a very early program, development work, theoretical work is being done at the university right now. There's hope that CIRM will be interested in funding a CAR T application for ROR1 and the ROR1 antibodies sometime in the near future. And then in the lower right, you'll see something called a bispecific. And this is where you have an engineered molecule where one side finds ROR1 and holds onto it. The other side attracts and activates immune cells to kill the tumors. That one is really a paper exercise so far. Some very promising early work has been done, and we're going to we have the pleasant problem of trying to figure out how to work on all of this. And so I thought you'd be interested to know that when the industrial partner, when the business partner looks at an abundance of riches like that and tries to figure out what do you do first? How do you prioritize these things? So like the research scientists, unmet medical need and the clinical path are key parameters for trying to do something like that. But we also have to look at competitive landscape, intellectual property, whether someone else can come in behind you and take your program away from you, how straightforward or quick it is to achieve FDA and worldwide approval, and how many patients there will be. Those all influence, in particular, my ability to attract investors to come and help us decide to work with us to get this program through, because if we don't have investors, we can't do the program. So a few specific parameters around this. Could you forward the slide for me, please? You always look for the first thing you want to do is to look for a serious and life-threatening disorder. You always want to go where the need is the greatest. And that there are, in particular where there are efficacy or safety issues with current treatments. Something that's very well treated with current therapy is not a great place to start, particularly for a small company. You need to consider not only what is standard of care today, but you have to have a pretty good crystal ball and think about what will be the standard of care, how will that disease be treated when your drug is approved and ready to be taken to patients. And that's a pretty complicated process. From the patent side of things, there's two sides. One is that you have to know that you have freedom to operate. FTO is a catchphrase in this area. And that means no one else has a patent that's going to stop you from taking the product forward. Blocking intellectual property would be knowing that your product is protected well enough by its patents to make it hard for other people to run particularly a big company, they call it a fast follower, come up right behind you because you're doing something exciting and take it away. And so through all of these areas, these are the kinds of parameters that go into very complicated multi-parameter assessment around deciding what do we do first. So from all this, we have decided the antibody cemtuzumab in the clinic is definitely the first priority. We've gone through all of these parameters. We think we've got a very clear idea about how to proceed and how to take cemtuzumab forward. So with the company, I think you'd be interested to know that Harvard Business Review did a pretty extensive analysis a few years of the failure of small companies. And half of small companies fail because there was something wrong with their technology, their product, the obvious tangible part of the company. But half of companies fail because of people. And that means you've got the wrong people. That means you've got people that can't work together. There's an implosion on the human side of things. And so one thing that I'm particularly happy about, and one way that this company, Oncternal, really fell together, is people who have worked together, people that know each other pretty well. They've been involved in more than one project, and each of us knows what the other can do in a way that we think will mesh pretty well to make this project succeed. So if we don't make it across the finish line, I don't think it'll be because of the people. On the left side, we've got founders and board, and between us as founders, we started over 30 companies, and most of them have done pretty well. Many products are on the market because of those companies that have been started up. And you can't get a project like this done without having investors that want to come in and join you in the effort, and they have to be convinced you know what you're doing and that this is going to go forward and succeed. And among them, our board members have raised over $5 billion to fund these 30 companies that they started and other companies that they're involved with. That's a great foundation for this. And then on the right side of the slide, these are the people that actually have to get the job done. And I think the thing that I find is essential about this group is that among us, we have been not in the building when it happened, but actually personally involved in 46 product approvals. And it's been most of them FDA, but also European approvals, Japanese approvals, and rest of the world. We have a real sense of urgency. CIRM is all about accelerating programs, and about 10 of those projects have been some form of accelerated approval, orphan designations, fast track, accelerated approval. So we know we have the same sense of urgency that we found that Dr. Kipps, Dr. Jameson, the rest of our academic collaborators, and CIRM hold, and we think we can get there pretty quickly. So from all those possibilities, let's see, whoops, okay. From all those possibilities, we are, and my last slide will show you how we are putting all of that into a timeline so that we can so we can harness our resources, collaborate effectively. If we could go back one, I hope, and then get over the finish line. So what we're doing with simtuzumab, with a naked antibody, you'll see up in the top left, is that first arrow is the phase 1 study that Michael Choi will describe to you in just a moment. It's essentially finished. There's a couple of more patients to enroll, but it's reached the top dose. We understand the biology. We're excited about the results. And they tell us it's the launching point for the next phase. Well, what we're going to do next is that we found that the antibody, the way it shuts down cells, works extremely well with another treatment for leukemia and lymphoma called ibrutinib, which is an inhibitor of Bruton tyrosine kinase. And so our next phase is a combination trial where we put the antibody together with the BTK inhibitor. We're doing a 1-year dose escalation with those two things together. We're going to get a recommended dosing regimen, the RDR there, and then we're moving straight into a randomized trial. And the way that trial is designed, we have the potential to have an interim analysis near the end of 2019, which based on our experience, we think we could take to the FDA and request an accelerated approval. So we could be within really 3 years right now of being able to get something in front of FDA if things go well. In parallel with that, and so that's we believe the promise here is all around this leukemia and lymphoma space that you've heard hear some more about. We're also developing this antibody drug conjugate that I described. And so we've now attached 6 different toxin molecules to the simtuzumab antibody. We're putting 2 more on in the next month. We're lining them up, testing them against each other, and that's going to be our next big thrust. We're going to pick the best of the bunch and then move into studies that you have to do to be to get FDA's permission to go into phase 1 testing. So that would be that IND star there that's right in the middle. And then we would move into phase 1. And then finally, the CAR T, and this is something where UCSD is continuing to do the early development work. We'll step in when the industrial side of things are needed, like figuring out how to scale up making the viruses and things like that. That'll also have an IND in 2018, and then also go into phase 1. So I'd like to, just in closing, I'd like to thank Dr. Rosen and City of Hope for sponsoring this. I'd like to thank all of the collaborators that are on this. It's been a remarkable team effort so far. The collaboration, the team effort's going very well right now. We think it's only going to accelerate, and we think we're going to have something for patients in as early as 2020. Thank you.